Hi and welcome. My name is Katherine Medina Devilers, and welcome to the lesson on simulations. What will you learn today? Well, you're going to learn about how do we represent real world phenomenon um, in our studies? How do we get computers to do that? And we call these simulations. Simulations are abstractions. And abstractions are a lot more complex phenomenons or things going on in the real world. And we use them to mimic them with a specific purpose to provide an analysis. Simulations you're going to find are going to have some limitations and they're going to have some bias. And but they also can be used to refinement of hypothesis and certain thinkings and results. And again, random generators can be used to simulate variability in our world. So let's just hop to an example here. Okay, so computer simulations can be limited and have bias. Okay, so for example, if we go ahead and make a simulation about someone driving a car, for one, I think we're making an assumption that they're 16 and older, that they're an adult. I don't think, which is a proper bias to make. I don't think we're going to have your little cousin or 2-year old taking off on a car in a simulation, but it has happened in the real world. All right. So we do assume that people do have their seatbelts on, especially with these car crash simulations that many companies will do, is because of the law. They make those simulations. And these simulations do have bias in the sense of like what car you're going to choose or what data you're going to choose to run your simulations. Here are some examples of computer simulations. We use simulations for like games, rolling dice, spinners. We use simulations maybe to help us with molecules or models or chemistry to kind of analyze different chemicals and reactions that are going on. We use simulations maybe for like air traffic control. Like really, what is the max number of planes that we should be having up in the air, especially coming in, landing, and taking off, all within a short time interval? I really like them doing simulations on something like that. It kind of makes flying a lot safer. Okay, let's look at some examples here. So, example one, determine which of the following statements is true or false. So, I want you to go ahead and pause the video here for a moment, look at the statements, determine which one's true or false, and we're going to catch right back up. Okay, welcome back. So, for the first one, a simulation will always have the same result. That is false. For example, if you're doing a simulation on rolling the dice, you really hope the result's going to be different every time. The second statement, a simulation investigates a phenomenon without real world constraints of time, money, or safety. And that is true. So we'll further examine the benefits more that a simulation will have. The third statement, a simulation has results which are more accurate than an experiment. That is false. You're going to get actual results or experiment, and we're going to get into that later. And the last statement, a simulation can model real world events that are not practical for experiments. And that is absolutely true. And it's one of the reasons why we really look to do simulations. Let's look at another example here. So I want you to take a moment to read this one. It's about a researcher, and the researcher is studying the hawk population in the area. And she predicted, using a model with 5 years of data, she predicted that 42 hawks would be in the area, but only 29 showed up. So, which of the following strategies would be least likely to offer more of an accurate result? Okay, least likely. So put your video on pause and I'll catch up with you in a moment. Alrighty. Hopefully you said removing more data and calculations so the simulation can run faster. Running a faster simulation is not going to give you a better result. Gathering more data, yeah, that might have helped her hone in on getting a more accurate prediction from her simulation. Considering data from other species in the area, that's a good way to go. Taking into consideration weather patterns in the area, that would something else that would help the simulation better. But to extract data for it to run faster, no, that's least likely. So let's recap. Simulations are abstractions. They provide opportunities to study when experiments are not feasible. A simulation uses a lot of varying sets of data. Okay. Simulations have bias. They are limited. They're done though without the restraints of the real world. Um, And simulations can refine your results and refine what you're thinking or you're hypothesizing. And again, we random number generators help create these simulations. So let's look at another example 3 here. So I'd like for you to put your video on pause and we're going to catch back up again. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully you saw that in example 3, we were dealing with the transportation department and they're looking at building that elevated train system. So a train system that's kind of elevated above ground. Okay. And the train has to go through 3 cities. So they want to administer the simulation before the construction begins. So you were looking at the statements and you were determining which of the following statement is true about the use of a simulation for the project. Well, definitely simulations can reveal possible safety issues. And that's one of the reasons why we love simulations because they can save lives. Simulation is not needed because an elevated train system exists. But does it exist for those 3 cities that it's passing through? Does it exist in the same environment? So, no, that really is not a true statement there. A simulation can be used to test a train system in different weather conditions. Uh, you know, nah, not really. And a simulation will add high cost to the project. Well, a simulation may add cost upfront in making the simulation, but if the simulation saves you on errors and safety and construction issues, it might actually at the end be cheaper for you to do the simulation than trying to simulate in the real world with all the construction that has to be needed for that type of run through or experiment. Let's look at 4. Which of the following scenarios would be the least beneficial to have as a simulation? So if you can put your video on pause and we'll catch back up again. Okay. Retail company wants to identify which items sold the most on their website. So when you're looking at simulations, okay, the least beneficial examples of doing a simulation are ones that you already have the data in hand. Like, for example, they've already sold the item on the website. What is there left to simulate? So they can just automatically do that right off the bat and add the numbers and get a very accurate result. That's it. The most items that were sold. Well, B, a simulation would be nice if you want to determine if a restaurant wants to use robots. I mean, you can see how maybe the customers react if it would be more efficient. Great example for a simulation if insurance company wanted to study impact of rain on car accidents. What exactly happens to the cars on the road during the rain? A biking company is looking at investing a lot of money into a new design of a bike. A simulation would be great for that, to look at the new changes and see if they're warranted. So what should you take away? Simulations help us represent real world phenomenon and study those outcomes. Simulations are abstractions. Okay, they use a lot of varying data. They mimic real world events, and it provides us opportunity to study. Simulations do have bias. They do remove specific details in order to simplify functionality. Okay, so again, simulations are very useful and they sometimes we use random generators to help produce the variability that's needed. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson on simulations and I look forward to seeing you again.